Thank you all. So this is going to be a little different. There'll be a pop quiz at the end. Did you tell them that? Oh, well, I'll let you know. No, I'm just kidding. What I do is I'm passionate about what I do. Yes. I got a few slides just to keep you all awake. Those tacos are probably just about hitting the gut now and putting you all to sleep. So, yeah, I am a real plastic surgeon. I even got a Photoshop picture to show you. Pretty nice, huh? All the technology behind and me sitting there. Well, my face sitting there. But no, really, I am. I'm board certified plastic surgeon. I've been in practice for 30 years. And it's amazing what kind of boards you can buy on the internet. But anyway, I got mine. And but today we're not going to talk about facelifts and breast augmentation. Sorry, guys. But we're not going to talk about plastic surgery and all the fancy stuff that we do. We're going to go much simpler. We're at a farm, right? And we're going to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is aloe vera. Now, everybody's heard of aloe vera, right? I mean, who has not? Whose grandmother didn't make them? I think I'm doing this right. There we go. There it is. So, why as a plastic surgeon from a urban? I grew up in a 22 million people city in Karachi, Pakistan. So, what's a city slicker like me doing worrying about aloe vera on a farm, right? Well, aloe is introduced to me just like most of you. You know, when as a kid, I'd go outside and I'd get a boo-boo, come in, my mom would go out there, break a piece of aloe and say, put this on and go back in. And I thought she just didn't like me too much, or, you know, I was a third kid, so she'd had enough by then and she was trying to do some cost savings or whatever. But it worked every time, right? I mean, the boo-boo got better. Well, it wasn't until much later, fast forward many years, and here I was in Galveston, Texas, at the University of Texas Medical Branch doing my plastic surgery residency, and I got reintroduced to aloe in a more scientific fashion. Even though my mom was probably a Sumerian and she knew all about this stuff, because the Sumerians talked about, I think they blogged about aloe in their tablets way back at 2100 BC. So I figured, you know, that's how my mom learned about it, so I'd better learn about it through a more sophisticated manner, right? So I happened to be lucky enough to train with a gentleman named Martin Robson, who was a huge name in plastic surgery, and he was a big name in aloe. Back in the early 70s, he had done a lot of work with aloe vera and burns at the University of Chicago. So of course, you know, we ate, drank, and did everything with aloe in our training, and it worked. Right? I mean, we've all seen, our grandmother showed us how it worked, right? You put it on a burn and it gets better. Now, why is that? And that was the question that I asked myself. You know, when I was going through this training, I said, you know, what is it, why is aloe doing this? And aloe vera is one of the most studied plants, natural plants out there by far. There's over 400 scientific papers written on it since 1946. I didn't know that till then. And so all our ancestors were right, but they didn't know why they were right. I want to know why I'm right. So I got into research into aloe, and I took aloe with me when I went to my practice in North Dakota. We can't grow aloe doesn't grow anywhere where there's even 1 day of freezing, so North Dakota was out for aloe, so we had to import our aloe in. But I got in the lab and I studied aloe, and I actually found that aloe vera, I studied diabetic wounds. Talk about an exciting life, right? Well, and what I found was that aloe behaves same as our growth factors in our body. In our body, we have these little proteins called growth factors that help heal wounds. And aloe had exactly the same effect on these diabetic wound cells, which is pretty fascinating to me. But so there's a lot of good things that aloe does that you know, I'm not going to get into because we'll talk here all day. But you know, like Wendell Winters said very succinctly, aloe plant is basically a plant, it's a pharmacy in itself. And most of us don't know that. And the reason is, I'll get into the reason in a minute, okay? But needless to say, for me, using aloe in my practice has been a staple for the last 30 years. Now, this is not just, I'll show you a couple of my patients just to wake you up. This is a baby that I was called in to see on the day he was born. They used one of those suction devices to pull him out. Well, something malfunctioned and he got a burn on his head. Well, you can see the burn's pretty bad. And normally we would have treated this with antibiotics. You would end up needing skin grafts, what have you. But, you know, little babies have amazing ability to heal. So I thought I'd help that along with aloe. And that's just using aloe. 3 months later, the babies were growing hair back there and had minimal scarring. The next picture is a patient of mine I was called to see. She had radiation therapy for thyroid cancer. And this is right after radiation therapy, pretty nasty. And, you know, she ended up with contractures and scars and surgeries and what have you. This is her treated with aloe 3 or 4 months later, just nothing else, no surgery. So even being a surgeon, I realized that aloe has a lot more to it than we as physicians, with all our technologies, can offer. So one of the things that came to my mind was, of course, being a plastic surgeon, you start doing all kinds of wounds and all kinds of great operations. And of course, everybody wants to get a facelift done too, and so we slowly start doing more cosmetic surgery. So I was doing a lot of cosmetic surgery, and one of the things people always asked me was, well, now that I've had my facelift done, what should I use? And I was like, well, I was with my wife at the Clinique counter. They had a sale. Might as well go get something there. Because to me, surgery was it, right? But aloe was always there. But what I didn't realize was I was using aloe vera to treat real issues, whereas aloe had a much wider range of treatments that I could do, and I didn't put the two things together till later. So when somebody would come to me with wrinkles and I'd say, what do? I'd of course find the latest laser or vaser or ultrasound machine or cold or warm or whatever sculpting machines they were, and sort of suggest those, because that's what we were marketed. That's what we get marketed. Technology. Technology is rampant in medicine. And acid peels were big. Acid peels have been around for 100 years, and acid peels were big. And this is what acid peel looks like. Anyway, anybody has had an acid peel done, you don't have to admit it, but it burns like hell, doesn't it? And that was my aha moment. I said, here I use aloe to fight inflammation, because inflammation basically is the root cause of a lot of problems. Did you know that inflammation is the cause of diabetes and heart disease? It's the inflammation in the pancreas that causes the cells to quit working and making insulin. It's the inflammation in your heart arteries that causes plaque formation. And the most common drug that's prescribed in dermatology is what? Anybody know? Steroids. Steroids are very potent anti-inflammatories because inflammation is the key root of any skin ailment. When you think about it, psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, acne, they're all inflammation-based. So fighting those is very difficult because steroids, drugs have side effects. So that's when I put two and two together. I said, using aloe vera as an anti-inflammatory becomes very important. Now you'll say, well, why is inflammation bad? Inflammation is good, right? Well, inflammation is good, but it's an imperfect system. Inflammation is, I'll give you the example. Inflammation is kind of like the police and the fire brigade all rolled into one in a city. So as soon as you have an emergency, you call the 911, and they all come running trying to fix your house that's on fire, say. Well, they put the fire out in your house, but what happens to your yard? What happens to your prized rose garden? All those hoses going through, et cetera. So you basically end up with a destroyed collateral damage outside. And that's what inflammation does. When inflammation comes in because we have an injury, it causes us to have problems with surrounding normal tissue that gets worse. Another example of that is you walk by a hot stove, you hit your hand against the stove, you pull it back, you say a few four-letter words, and then amen is not one of them, right? And you look and you see it's a little red dot, right? The injury's done, gone. By the next day, there's a blister and it's got worse. But the injury stopped immediately. Why did it get worse later? Well, it got worse because of the collateral damage from inflammation. And that's why we see something like this when we do an acid peel. Oh. Okay. Can we go back on that slide, please? When we do an acid peel, this is the kind of collateral damage we get before it heals up and looks better. So that's why we can't do peels every day. But my aha moment was that we do need to be able to peel or exfoliate every single day. And how do we do that without causing this? Then I thought of men who shave. Look at men sitting around you who shave every day. Their quality of skin here is much better than up here or up here, because they exfoliate every single day with a sharp object, right, and without inflammation. So exfoliation without inflammation only made sense. So putting a peel in a bottle that didn't burn was the key. And of course, my answer was staring me in the face, was aloe vera. And with aloe vera, you could get these kind of results very quickly. And that's why I started formulating my own stuff and giving it to my patients. And that's where I'm here today. So speaking of aloe, you say, well, you're not the first guy to put aloe in a product. Well, I'm not. And the problem with aloe is it's not a controlled substance, right? The FDA doesn't care about how much aloe or what kind of aloe you're doing. So there's a lot of abuse in aloe. Aloe is something that actually you pay what you get. You pay for what you get. You can go to GNC or some store and you can buy a big jar of aloe for $10 and you think you've got great aloe. Well, most of the time you're not going to get good aloe. And that's the hard part for the consumer. Because aloe vera is probably one of the most abused natural plants out there, in the sense that it's used in advertising a lot, right? You see aloe vera advertised in front of bottles all over the time. And you look in the back, there's less aloe vera in those bottles than there is preservative, maybe. And that is not the only problem. Aloe vera is a very, very sensitive plant. As soon as we cut a plant, and my mother was pretty smart. She wouldn't cut the plants and keep them in the fridge and pull them out for us, because she knew I was going to get a boo-boo next time, right? But she'd go and cut a fresh plant to give it to me. Aloe vera commits suicide as soon as you cut it. It knows you're going to steal its mojo, so what it does is it starts auto-degrading itself, and within 4 hours, all the good stuff is gone out of aloe. So it's very difficult to process it. They have to have processing plants on field. So big companies like, big cosmetic companies, they will not use aloe they look at the bottom line. So if it's an expensive ingredient, they're not going to really use the good stuff. And that's what I found out over and over again in my research. And aloe is difficult to grow. Like I said, it doesn't grow in any place where there's even 1 day of freezing. And aloe plants take 7 years to grow to the size that the true aloe that we use. There's 100 different kinds of aloe. And what we use is called aloe barbadensis in skincare, which are 8-foot leaves. And it takes 7 years for a plant to grow, and it lasts 7 years, and then it dies. So they have to turn over the fields over and over again. But I could talk about this all day long. The point I'm trying to make here is that aloe is a difficult and very expensive ingredient, and that's why it's used more for marketing than used truly in the sense that it should be in the pure, biologically active, pharmaceutical grade that we need to get these kind of results. Thank you.